Ethan Reyes forced a steady breath as he approached the ruined visitor center, gripping his equipment packed tighter than he'd admit. He'd seen plenty of abandoned places in his time. Deserted outposts, half-submerged research rigs. But this one unsettled him. The job paid well enough to keep him from asking too many questions, though. The world needed advanced tech, and rumor said Isla Nublar's old systems still held valuable schematics, with the company's thin assurances echoing in his head. Just grab what you can from the visitor center. He pressed on, ignoring the uneasy churn in his gut. The building's facade loomed like a giant carcass, all broken glass and tangled vines. Moonlight glistened on moss-choked logos, the remnants of some grand vision turned to rot. He nudged open the heavy doors, each protesting with a drawn-out groan. Inside, silence cloaked everything. Dust caught the beam of his flashlight, dancing slowly before fading into darkness. Mural fragments hinted at old dreams. Dinosaur silhouettes against lush landscapes. But now those images peeled and curled, as if time itself refused to remember what once lived here. Ethan moved methodically, relying on the habits he'd forged in the Marines. He scanned collapsed rafters and rusted fixtures, trying to find anything worth salvaging. The payday mattered. He owed it to himself, and maybe to the folks back at camp who counted on these recovered blueprints to jumpstart a better world. He didn't have to love this place, just get his work done. Still, when his boots crunched over glass and he spotted long, fresh gashes carved deep into a wall, he paused. Something here was alive, and it had claws. He knelt, running a gloved finger near the mark, but not touching it. "Wind doesn't do that," he muttered quietly. A faint clicking echoed down a distant corridor. It wasn't the random creak of an old building settling. It sounded deliberate, like nails on stone. He considered calling the salvage team, but he knew the static would probably swallow his voice. Out here, comm signals were wishful thinking. He pressed onward, following old signage into what had been a hatchery. The air smelled stale, tinged with something coppery. His beam revealed cracked eggshells strewn across the floor, ancient remnants of a failed experiment. But beneath them lay something fresh, the small, broken body of a compy, blood still gleaming. The sight knotted his stomach. He'd seen death before, too many times, but this felt different. Something patient and predatory lurked here, feeding and surviving. Ethan lifted his radio, voice hushed. Rees to base anyone read. Only a sheet of white noise replied. He sighed and lowered it. A shadow flitted at the edge of his vision. He spun, flashlight raised, but caught only emptiness. This building felt alive now, each corridor breathing menace. The clicking grew louder. He froze, noticing a footprint in the dust. 3 sharp toes. A raptor. He hissed a curse under his breath. Raptors were no mindless beasts. They were cunning, hunters that thought and planned. If one was here, others might be too. They struck without warning. A shape hurtled from the darkness, a blur of teeth, claws, sinew. Ethan threw himself sideways, slamming hard into a toppled display case. His flashlight skittered across the floor, its beam capturing the raptor's silhouette as it snarled, head low and eyes locked on him. He remembered old stories, how these creatures outflanked squads, how they learned from each encounter. This wasn't some mindless monster, it was a tactician. He snatched up the flashlight and swung its bright beam into the creature's face. For an instant, it hesitated, pupils contracting against the glare. Ethan seized that heartbeat of confusion and bolted. His boots pounded cracked tiles as he hurtled down a corridor, the raptor's claws scraping close behind. Every instinct screamed for him to fight, but he had no proper weapon. Just his nerve and the scraps he could scrounge. At the end of the hall, he spotted a battered control room and dove inside. slamming the door shut and ramming a desk beneath the handle. The wood creaked ominously as the creature threw its weight against it. Outside, through a fractured window, he glimpsed more movement in the moonlit courtyard. At least 2 other raptors, their silhouettes gliding through overgrown foliage. They looked coordinated, like a pack of wolves circling their prey. Ethan's throat tightened. He felt the old fear he rarely admitted to. Fear that came not from superstition, but from a cold understanding of odds. He rummaged frantically through the room. There had to be something useful. His flashlight's beam caught a torn poster and a jagged chair leg. He remembered a trick from a mission long ago. Predators often shied from sudden flames. Maybe raptors would too. He stripped the poster into makeshift tinder and wrapped it around the chair leg. With shaking fingers, he flicked his lighter. A small flame licked up the paper, illuminating his sweat-beaded face. When the door burst inward, the raptor lunged into the glow. Ethan swung the torch, the fire crackling and scattering embers. The creature hissed and shrank back, startled. Not intimidated forever, maybe, but long enough. He wasted no time. He slipped past the raptor and into the halls again, brandishing the flickering torch. The main entrance lay blocked by a collapsed pillar and piles of twisted metal. No easy escape. Then he spotted a ladder, half hidden behind a fallen beam, the roof. From there, maybe he could signal the team or find another way out. He climbed fast, every muscle burning, the roar of adrenaline hot in his ears. Below, the raptors shrieked in frustration, their cries bouncing through the empty halls. A final push, and he emerged onto the rooftop. He gulped the fresh night air as if it were salvation, looking down at the moving shadows below. They were gathering, dozens of glowing eyes, as if the very jungle had become a hunting ground. Somewhere off in the darkness, a deep roar rumbled, ancient and authoritative, a T-Rex call, unmistakable in its supremacy. Ethan steadied his trembling hand and raised the radio. His voice cracked as he spoke. Reyes need extraction. Now would be great. Static, then a faint reply. Copy, hold tight. On our way. He pressed his lips together and gripped the still flickering torch. The tension hummed in the darkness. He was high enough to breathe, to think. Yet surrounded all the same. He'd come for salvage, for a prize someone said could rebuild a future. Now he stood on a roof above a hungry past, trapped between what once was and what needed to be. The night stretched wide and merciless, and Ethan Reyes braced himself for whatever dawn would bring.